Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Dialogue. I'm Taimur Shamil. India is exposed internationally after especially the EU Disinfo Lab report and on Wednesday. And this is damning because EU Lab has Disinfo Lab has exposed India on many platforms, I would say. Srivastava Group, which has been operating from India and for India, has been running fake accounts, fake NGOs, think tanks for that matter, fake websites, and even using the name of a professor who died many years back in 2006. And they have been doing it primarily to discredit Pakistan and to also spread the disinformation globally. Today, in a presser, Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi, Foreign Secretary, and SAPM Moeed Yusuf, they discussed about how grave the situation is and the way India has been disseminating this disinformation globally. This is damning. Just imagine if China and Russia would have done that. There would have been a hue and cry globally, but we are going to see what the international community is going to say about this thing specifically. The underlying element and the most important element is that India has been trying to abuse the international institutions like European Union and United Nations. The underlying element and their motive was that they wanted to have narratives built in United Nations and European Union to discredit Pakistan. This is what the report said, that this was their main aim, and that is what they wanted to do. Another question is, how many people or the staff working in European Union and United Nations, they knew about this organization, Srivastava Group, and the think tanks they have been running, the NGOs they have been running, the websites for that matter, and all these media outlets that they have been running to foster their own narrative, to foster India's own agenda, and to discredit Pakistan. We're going to discuss about this whole thing and the fifth generation warfare that we discuss about, that we talk about in Pakistan. Few days back, DGISPR gave an interview to Global Village Space, a think tank, a magazine in Islamabad, and he exactly mentioned all these things, the way India has launched fifth generation warfare against Pakistan. And just on Wednesday, we saw the report coming from the EU Disinfo Lab. A few weeks back, Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi and DG ISPR also did a presser in which they exactly mentioned the Indian officials, Indian diplomats, and army personnel who have been involved in instigating terrorism, supporting and financing terrorist organizations like TTP, Hizbul Ahrar, and Jamaatul Ahrar in Afghanistan to carry out attacks against Pakistan. This was also, I would say, a damning pressure from the Pakistani authorities. The Indian dossier, as we call it, exposing India, was handed over to the Secretary General of United Nations, and also this was brought up with the Afghan ambassador here in Islamabad. This whole information, this disinformation, the information warfare is launched by India. But as I mentioned earlier, the big question is that they wanted to abuse the international institutions. Would we, the international community, let them do it? Are we going to ask them about their nefarious designs, the abuse that they have been trying to do on India and against Pakistan? We are joined by Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi. Assalamu alaikum, sir. Welcome to the program.
Wa alaikum salam.
Right. Foreign Minister, talking about this disinformation launched by India, the whole world now knows about it. What is Pakistan's stance now? How are we going to expose India and take up this case with EU and United Nations?
Well, obviously, India has been exposed. Their smear campaign against Pakistan, built on fake websites, fake NGOs, amplified through fake, think tanks and NGOs, was exposed by investigations of EU Disinfo Lab. Now, this didn't happen overnight. The first investigation and report came out in 2019, and this is the second report, which has more details. And Pakistan has highlighted this to the UN authorities, to the European Union, at how they have manipulated the system to malign Pakistan, and they should take notice of that. How their news agency, ANI, which is also in partnership with a very reputed newswire agency, Reuters, is, passing on this concocted, disinformation, this propaganda through their channels and through their websites, and discrediting reputable organizations. They should take notice of that and investigate, and there are crimes committed, and they should be held accountable.
Right. And just to counter this Indian propaganda, I would say, certainly we have taken up the case, as you just mentioned, with the institutions, international institutions. On the diplomatic front, how do you think that Pakistan can counter this Indian propaganda? Because if this was being fought in European Union, especially in Europe for that matter, how is Pakistan going to diplomatically address this issue on ground?
Well, we have communicated, we have passed instructions to our missions to share this with their host countries, with parliamentarians, with think tanks, with the media in their respective countries, to show the real face of the Indian propaganda machine. We also last month unfolded and gave details of a Indian dossier in which we had irrefutable evidence on how India was sponsoring, financing terrorism inside Pakistan, and how they were imposing a hybrid war on Pakistan. Now, this report has, through an independent source, a third-party investigation, endorsed what I had said on the 14th of November, and Pakistan stands vindicated.
Right. My last question, Foreign Minister, talking about Afghanistan, in your previous presser, you mentioned about the Indian dossier that was handed over to the Secretary General of the United Nations. You specifically named those people who have been involved in this, the Indian officials for that matter. While we talk about peace in Afghanistan, India is playing the role of a spoiler. Are we going to take up this case with the Afghan authorities, with the, let's say, US and NATO troops over there, that while Pakistan is trying for and striving for peace and stability, this is what India is doing? What is the future of it?
Well, one has discussed this issue when I met the Afghan Foreign Minister at Kabul, and then when I met him in Niger, at Niamey for the Council of Foreign Ministers, conference. I did with him and warned him of the spoilers. And I said, beware of the spoilers. Pakistan is interested in seeing the peace process move forward, but there are parties that do not want to see a stable, peaceful, prosperous Afghanistan, and you beware of them.
Right. Mr. Foreign Minister, thank you for joining us. Thank you for your time. That was Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi talking about the disinformation that India wants to disseminate, and also India's nefarious designs in Afghanistan to sabotage peace and stability, and regionally to discredit Pakistan globally as well. We are joined by our special guest in the studio, Mr. Ahsan Sheikh, renowned analyst on Pakistan's national security and also on global affairs. Welcome to the show, Mr. Ahsan. On Skype, we are joined by Ambassador Nafeez Zakaria, renowned senior diplomat and Pakistan's former High Commissioner to United Kingdom. We are also joined by Ambassador Aslam Rizvi, renowned senior diplomat and expert on Pakistan's foreign policy. I welcome you all. I'll start with Mr. Ahsan. This EU Disinfo Lab report We just talked about it, Foreign Minister talked about it. We have been discussing this on our program as well, on Dialogue specifically. How do you see this expose of Indian nefarious designs and actually trying to abuse the international institutions?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you very much, Taimur. Interestingly, Taimur, I would say that this has not only happened in 2020 or towards the end of 2020, this happened once in 2019 as well. And we also at that time as well, we said that India is involved very much into nefarious activities which is part of a hybrid warfare, and they are trying to malign Pakistan and the situation, and they are trying to take advantage of whatever is happening inside India. They are trying to camouflage all that. They are trying to sabotage the peace process going on in Afghanistan. They are trying to go and protect the human right violations which they have done in Kashmir and elsewhere, and within their own country as well. So they were trying to do all this, and this all Pakistan was really in knowledge of, and Pakistan really said all these things in 2019 as well. So I think today Pakistan stands much taller and much stronger on the diplomatic front and in the entire globe, in the entire world, that what Pakistan has been saying, our verdict has proved correct. It has not been Pakistan this time that we have brought this report out. It is the EU and the global,
Lab.
Yeah, it's a lab which has brought in this news and break this news that look, here is a country which is involved in such an activity of maligning a neighbor who is always on the right path and trying to put the things right in this region, because this region, is going for a very big economic turnover, because of the BRI and especially Pakistan Economic China Corridor,
Right.
And this can't be actually digested by India, that if Pakistan keeps on taking these kind of flying starts which Pakistan has taken already, then what is the way to check Pakistan? The only thing they can see it, they can't really compete Pakistan militarily, because they know that Pakistan army is a very strong army now, and they can't really afford a full-fledged war on that. So what else options are left?
Propaganda is
the
their
propaganda
best option,
is the only strong tool which they wanted to use, and that is what they have done.
And they are exposed. Ambassador Zakaria, talking about this whole expose, you have served Pakistan and United Kingdom, you know Europe well. How's Europe looking at it? And this also puts a big question mark on the institutions and the people working in European Union, European Parliament for that matter, and UN. Do you think that some of them would be knowing about this whole propaganda? India is designed to undermine these institutions. How do you see that?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you very much. My profound regards to Aslam Rizvi Sahab, our senior colleague. I want to inform you about my views on this. First of all, that it came up, these things were surfaced during end of 2019. And since then, we on the diplomatic front have been in our interactions with our interlocutors and when we are based abroad. With the host government, we have been actually creating awareness. We have been mentioning about Indian activities. Secondly, this is the revolution that has come from an independent group, which is EU Disinfo Lab. And we are fully aware of Indian designs against Pakistan. Well, this may have surfaced now, but they are undertaking all these subversive activities and the sabotage activities to sabotage the Pakistan's objectives and discredit Pakistan, to malign Pakistan and project and portray Pakistan in the negative light before the international community. Now, let me tell you, this has another angle to it. There is another angle to it, which is very important to know. Our foreign minister just mentioned about the hybrid war. This hybrid war is not just about disinformation. It is basically targeting two things. One, to demoralize our community abroad and Pakistanis at home. Because this is psychological warfare. And about that, I wrote in 2009 in detail, and it was published in one of the newspapers here. So what I'm telling you is that this is one factor, one angle aspect that you need to look into. That and through you and through this media, Pakistani media, the message strongly should be communicated to Pakistani community abroad, especially that after Indian revelation or exposure of the real face of India, they should they should calm down, because I know, because of this psychological warfare, because of the disinformation spread by India,
Right.
Pakistani community abroad used to be always on the defensive with regard to Pakistan, and I used to actually engage them and boost their morale and tell them that this is a psychological war and you must be careful about it. Secondly, very important aspect about this actually relates to the foreign countries where the Pakistani community is based. Now, this disinformation campaign is not just about Pakistan, but they were actually spreading all sort of dirty news about Pakistanis abroad. They had been portraying Pakistanis as very bad people, and they are not supposed to be welcomed in the countries abroad. So I think this has a security angle for the countries where our community has done so well. Our community has been appreciated, and our community has actually made Pakistan proud because of their performance, because of their achievement, and because of their successes over there, and their contributions, tremendous contributions to the countries where they are living. So I think this is very important. Last but not least, you're discussing just one aspect. India has been exposed on account of much bigger sins, and that is the state-sponsored terrorism which India carries out
Yes.
in Pakistan. About Pakistan has made a very strong case, and we have already submitted our dossier to the UN Secretary General, and I think it has been also sent to all the major countries in the world, especially the UN Security Council's permanent members. But
Right.
they have also been maligning, they have also been actually targeting the other countries in the region. So India has become a nuisance. And then on top of all these things, India has been committing crimes against humanity, not just on its own soil, but also on the occupied territory of Kashmir in a
Right.
massive way. And there are
That's right.
so many loads of documented accounts of this. And I think this is what we need to see as a full picture. And India should be, the international community should be engaged on all these counts to call India to account. India has been involved
we're
in
going-
impersonation
Right.
through this info lab you have just mentioned, and this is also in the beginning of the Disinfo Lab report, that Mr. Thomas, Professor Thomas, his name was used, whereas he had died many years ago. So I think
Right.
there are so many
Ambassador
cases,
Zakia, Ambassador Zakia,
and
we are going to
Indian
we are going
agencies
to
which are
continue.
involved in this, whether it is NGOs, whether it is think tanks, or the news agencies, they all should be taken to task. They all should be banned. All should be blacklisted by the international community and the major countries.
We'll continue our discussion on this. Ambassador Rizvi, that's about the Indian propaganda. That is about how India wants to undermine the sanctity of the international institutions. But my question is that would these institutions, the European Union, European Parliament for that matter, and the parliamentarians, interestingly, some of them, not all of them, they were a part of this whole campaign, this disinformation campaign run by India. Some of them actually also wrote op-eds and articles for Srivastava group. How do you think that European Union, European Parliament and UN, they are going to react to this, this group and this disinformation?
The two main objectives that the Indians had, as far as Geneva was concerned, was to launch protests and lobbying as well from there. And we saw that some protests, like for example, the Baloch Liberation Army movement in 2017. Now, as far as the other is concerned and the Brussels is concerned, there the target has been to get the European parliamentarians to invite them on junkets to international visits and to solicit their support for writing op-ed articles and so on. There was a famous visit of the uh, European Union on the rightist side who have been invited to Kashmir, for that matter, and surprisingly so, because even the opposition in India were not invited, and they were not allowed to meet any journalists or meet any other opposition parties as well. Yet, they were taken to Kashmir, and they met of course, Mr. Modi and also the Mr. Duval. So one of the participants who had gone was asked about the fact that this is a organization and it's a fake organization. So the parliament said, well, I have nothing to do with the Indian government. If it is there, I went to see things for myself. Now, this is the kind of attitude which is very damaging, because why, if you allow such things happening, you having the using the parliament in Brussels, the European Parliament, to promote fake news, to promote information, then it is affecting the institution itself.
Right.
By that way you are changing the thinking and the attitudes, the narrative of the European Union. So it is very important that we should see what's going to happen now. Look, in 2019, when it was first leaked, what happened? Absolutely nothing. Now we have to see what's going to happen now. Will there be some measures being taken to safeguard this in the future, or we're just going to let it go again next year? So that is going to be very damaging. And as the Prime Minister had rightly said, that these fake news and disinformation damages democracy. It damages the journalists, their approach to that. But we see that there are now a realization coming that there's a lot of disinformation going on, and we should be very selective and understand and try to see what is right and what is fake. And UNESCO has taken a lead in that direction, as you know. They published a book on disinformation and misinformation, and to guide the journalists and the others to see how it goes. So yes, this has been it's been from 2005. Of course, Modi was not there in power, but it was on this misinformation was going on since that time. But it is during Modi's time, and recently, as we see with linkage with CPEC also, because some of the countries where they're operating are also those who are supporting CPEC, and as well as the Israel, which is the master of false statements and distorting the images and happenings in Palestine. So
Right.
it's a
Ambassador-
at this
Ambassador
point in
Rizvi?
time, yeah.
Right. We're going to continue our discussion on this disinformation. But the member of the European Parliament that you just mentioned, her name is Thierry Mariani, and Mr. Essen, she was also the part of the delegation which visited Kashmir. She is from the right-wing party of France, one of the right-wing parties of France. My question is, and we have been discussing this on our program, that this EU Disinfo Lab has exposed the Srinivasava group and the way they have been disseminating the disinformation. There is also another link and nexus between the Indian far right and the European far right, and their idea is the same. The idea is intolerance, I would say. How do you see Thierry Mariani? And she said that she would say whatever she wants to say, she would write whatever she wants to write, and she supports Modi, and we know the kind of policies Modi government has been following and implementing in Kashmir, and the genocide in Delhi when Trump was visiting Delhi. How do you see this nexus of far right in Europe and far right in India?
See, this is very clear that things have come out at such a time that once the Pakistan was, pleading and was really asking and was taking all the right steps in the right direction for bringing in peace in this region. And someone out there was trying to destabilize the peace of this region. And we have been talking loudly about the regional peace. Now, this has got to do with the regional peace. where India very cleverly was trying to play a game which was you know, a well camouflaged game through such people and such you know, journalists, and using such a high profile you know, individuals and people out there, and bringing them and making a change or a dent in the overall perspective of the situation which Pakistan was trying to present. So they were trying to always try to shallow that off. But Alhamdulillah, I would say that Pakistan has been very lucky in this way, that the things have come out now, and since the things are now in the out to the world as at a large for them to see by themselves. Pakistan has always been providing the evidence, the credible evidences in the UNHCR, in the EU, and all that forum which really matters on the global front. Pakistan has been bringing up, and with a lot of credibility, Pakistan has been bringing those dossiers and being given. So visiting nexus
of right wing, European and Indian.
Yeah, that is very dangerous, and this is not only going to you know, affect the regional or the South Asian region also, but the globe as a whole.
And the
you know, and the
Islamo
countries, those who are part of European Union, have to be very careful, and they have to know it, that who is and what has been happening there.
What unites the European far right and the Indian far right is also Islamophobia. That Prime Minister Imran Khan has repeatedly talked about.
He has talked about in UNHCR, and loudly he has been. That is what my point is. Actually, Pakistan has been presenting its points, and Pakistan has been very decently. I would say Pakistan has always used very decent way of using. We have never maligned. Well, if we have talked against the atrocities in Kashmir, we have very decently done it. But that is that's a truth which is there. But nobody has as yet done anything about it.
And of course, there's a reason for that, and we'll discuss about that reason.
Absolutely.
That why international community, interestingly, would have multiple standards. I would say not just double standards.
And then we have to see it there's another angle also which we need to really see, that what are going to be the remedial measures which Pakistan, because now the things are there and the reality is there for us to really gauge. Now, what are those measures which has to be taken, and they have to be really taken very fast, because we can't keep sitting and we can't keep waiting for the others to analyze and just keep talking about it, and nothing concrete happens on ground. We need to see the things happening on ground. Either they ban them, either they take some real action, either they take them to the you know, International Court of Justices and make a case against them, and really ask for an explanation from the Indian government as to what all is happening, because this has been happening right under their nose and they are fully involved in it.
Masdar Zakaria, the people who were mentioned in this report, interestingly, they were visiting Indian occupied Kashmir on the invitation of BJP government, and one of those, many of them, they met Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, and the parliamentarian that we are talking about, who is from France, she also met the Indian Prime Minister, talking about these parliamentarians and talking about Europe for that matter. How do you see this, I would say, nexus of right-wing European political parties and the right-wing extremist parties in India?
Well, I think let us not really put the entire blame or on the other parties. Now, these parliamentarians, they could be misled, as is the case in this situation, where India has been actually convincing the foreign countries' parliamentarians, including the EU parliamentarians, on issues that were non-existent, issues that were concocted, and those were usually all related to Pakistan. Now, since it was built on false grounds, it did not go very far. What happened? What was the outcome of that EU parliamentarians' visit to the Indian occupied Kashmir? See, nothing. It did not go very far, and they realized it was, since not officially sponsored, it was clarified by EU itself that it was not an official visit. It was not EU-sponsored visit. So I think, first of all, it was already undermined, the visit itself. And now, in the face of this revelation about disinformation activities of India, it has further, gone down. Now, at the same time, you know that we also convince parliamentarians that what has been fed to them is not correct. They must visit the places to see the ground realities. So there are parliamentarians who are willing to go to places to see for themselves. So same is the case when parliamentarians went to the Azad Jammu and Kashmir, and they saw the reality on ground, while the EU Parliament could not see. And the credibility of that visit, which took place from United Kingdom to Pakistan, was that it came out in the shape of a formal report, and that has become part of the history. The same parliamentarians, most of them, the APVG group had visited Pakistan earlier also, and they had actually documented all what they had seen and what all they had observed through various sources, and they had put together, and in 2018 they had filed a report, and this was the second report which they had filed in 2020. So I think we the parliamentarians across the world, they assumed the responsibility of getting to know things in correct perspective, and then they reflect accordingly. So EU's case, which was unofficial visit, they were misled by the Indian officials. They were misled by, the Indian elements were backed by Indian government. So it did not go very far. And they stood exposed after the visit took place. Even during the visit, the controversy actually was raised. And EU had to issue sort of a statement to convey that it wasn't an official visit.
Right. Ambassador Rizvi, talking about this whole situation, the way India is exposed, as Ambassador Zakaria just mentioned, do you think that the European parliamentarians, or overall, first of all, the way India and the Srinivasava group was using the NGOs, and they were rather using the fake letters of European Parliament to foster their narrative in United Nations, that is, I would say, criminal. So there needs to be some action taken against Srinivasava group and all those people perhaps in India who were supporting this group, SG group. But also, do you think that this international community now, or the parliamentarians, would be more cautious in future when they talk about, let's say, collaborating with any party, any NGO or think tank from India?
Well, as you know, it is the visits by parliamentarians and think tanks are usually not so frequent. They come and make a report and so on. What is needed is to be able to highlight the fact that what is being done by these fake agencies and dead bodies being resurrected and the personalities being impersonated and given the floor even in United Nations on behalf of India, pillar Pakistan and praise India. So what is needed to be done is that we must try and focus and ask India first of all and demand, give us an explanation what they are. I mean, they claim that it may not be the government itself, but how can it be such a huge organization and the government is not involved, and particularly the intelligence agencies? So the first and foremost, when we have our discussions, we should request at every forum and in every interlocutor that India should be asked to explain, and especially nowadays when we are faced with the coronavirus. The need to have truth, should not have disinformation. So it is very important that truth should come out. Whatever is being said is in reality. So it doesn't affect the journalists, it doesn't affect democracy. What we need to do is that we should also insist, if nothing else, that these agencies, the UN, the European Union, and in meetings with the other countries, that such fake organizations, and especially think agencies like the Chronicle and the ANA, ANI, the Asian National International, Asian National International, etc., which are picking up the op-eds and picking up the fake news and then disseminating this to over 76 countries where they have their offices and so on and bureaus. So the focus should be now to try and identify all these which have to a great extent have been exposed by the DIT Info Lab, and we should be providing this also, request them to be provided to all countries so that they make a list of these, and wherever they are, the governments there should be asked that they should be, closed. And if there is any protest, they should be, the Indians should be asked to explain their activities and get them to close it down.
Right, right. Mr. Hassan, talking about the world community, as you just mentioned earlier, what are they going to do about Kashmir, let's say? Recently, US would put Pakistan and a couple of other countries on the religious issues, and minority issues, but somehow they would not look at the pogrom or the genocide in Delhi. Interestingly, even when President Trump was there in Delhi, but they couldn't see what was happening on the streets of Delhi, what was the way Muslim neighborhoods were specifically targeted that day. And overall, what is happening in Indian occupied Kashmir for that matter, every single day is a day of resistance. This duplicity, what do you think about this, and what Pakistan can do when it comes to actually, taking an action on these human rights violations?
Well, let me take the second part of your question first. That is what Pakistan can do. There are multiple options which Pakistan has, and Pakistan is always doing it. And the first and the foremost is that you try to engage the international community and try to present your case there and try to make sure that the pressure of the international community should be there. And we always go back to UN, where the case has been registered also, and it is an unfinished agenda of partition between Pakistan and India, and since long it is, and now since last 500 days the curfew is still on and it's going on. So the human watchers, the human watch gates, they are all aware of the situation now. And we have started to hear that initially, like sometimes back, there used to be no voice, I would say, absolutely, but now at least the ice has been broken, and there are certain voices, and this has happened because of the good leadership. Let me acknowledge it, because of the good dynamic leadership of Pakistan, that they have gone in and they have started to make their point in the highest possible forums,
and proactively
then following it. So this is what the Kashmir is, and the options. This is the most decent and the nicer effort is that it should keep going on, and it should be followed more aggressively, and more people should be also engaged, and people to people contact should also be encouraged in that way.
Now the duplicity
of
these powers who otherwise talk about universal liberal values, human rights and everything, but they would just turn blind eye to Kashmir and the plight of Muslims in India.
I would say with one word that just see the elections which has happened in US just now, and who accepts the elections are who accepts the incoming president and who doesn't. So this kind of a leadership was previously there. I feel that after the change of the leadership and in these big big powers, the changes globally also would come in, and the priority will be with them for following up of these humanity genocides wherever it is happening, not only in Kashmir, wherever it is happening in the world, because overall now the world sees that wars or occupation is not the answer to the solutions. The solution remains to be where you go and diplomatically you improve relations, and the other thing is economically, if you change the livelihood of the people, then only you can stay for a longer time out there, and that is what the concept now is, and this is being followed. And the powers in the world, what to talk of any other power in the rest of the world, let's talk about the regional powers. The regional powers have also not exerted as yet their full power which needs to be seen at least to resolve the Kashmir issue. And it's not only Kashmir issue, it is after the Kashmir issue, there are so many other pending issues also. With Pakistan and India, there are a number of other issues also. You know, it is a water issue, it is the genocide, it is this kind of false operations of this kind of perspective building, and this info warfare which has come in.
But interestingly, this doesn't stop there. The information warfare doesn't stop there. Indian propaganda doesn't stop there. They continue to finance and support terrorist organizations operating in the region. Few weeks back, Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi and DG ISPR did a damning presser in which they actually named the Indian officials who were involved in sabotaging peace and stability, financing these terrorist organizations, and playing the role of a spoiler in the Afghan peace process. Ambassador Zakaria, naming and shaming India in Afghanistan, how do you see that? And that India is not just focusing on disseminating this disinformation and propaganda warfare, I would say, but at the same time they're actually financing and supporting the terrorist organizations in the region, specifically in Afghanistan. How do you see that?
Well, I think, as I said in the beginning, that India has always been engaged in activities to destabilize Pakistan and also to malign Pakistan, to portray Pakistan in the negative light before the international community. India has been using the bogey of terrorism to again malign Pakistan, but on the other hand, they themselves have been involved in state-sponsored, terrorism, perpetrating terrorism in Pakistan. Now, this has been many years back in 2011. Chuck Hagel, the former Defense Secretary of United States, he was the one who actually pointed finger at India and publicly made a statement that India was financing trouble from Afghanistan into Pakistan. And this was actually, this statement surfaced in 2013. And after that, you have seen a series of revelations, for example, Kulbhushan Yadav's arrest and then his confessions, and subsequently unearthing of so many plans which India had actually planned on their plate to carry out to destabilize Pakistan and carry out terrorism in Pakistan. So Indian involvement in terror financing was exposed then as also. And then Ehsanullah Ehsan, who was the former spokesperson for JUA as well as the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, he also voluntarily rendered information about how RAW and the Indian agencies and Indian government officials were engaging TTP and JUA elements to perpetrate and carry out terrorist activities in Pakistan, and they were terror financing as well. And it's not just these people who have said this thing. If you look at Ajit Doval's statement before he became the NSA, he made this statement in front of the world that what his plans were, that he is going to take the war to Pakistan. He is going to use the terrorist elements against Pakistan. Then you have heard their former defense minister, Parakar, who also made the statement publicly that they will use terrorists to, against Pakistan. So I think Manohar Parakar. And then you have also heard Subramanian, who has said at least 10 times in public that what India actually plans to do with Pakistan. I believe the world has loads of documented accounts which are not made by Pakistan, but they have been made by the independent agencies. So the world has nothing to stop them from taking action against India and call them to account. But let me tell you, you actually hit the nail on the head when you mentioned that many things are already known to the world, and yet the world has not taken any action. Now, you have to see the bigger picture, the bigger canvas. You have to see the geographic location of India, which is in a region where the major powers' traditional rebels are there. Their long-term objectives are linked to this region. And as I see it,
that given the economic stagnation which has taken place in the advanced world or the first world, the economic gravity has shifted to the Asian region where the traditional rivals are there. And I think in the coming years, we have already started to see that. We will see a lot of not just the opportunities, but a lot of challenges because of the converging interest
Right.
of the world powers to this region. And India is seen as a linchpin in this context. People have been, giving statement about it. It's not a secret that how India is seen as a counterweight to China's rise as an economic power or as
Right.
a major power in the world. So I believe
right.
that we have to look at it, in this perspective. I think what is required is that constant effort to create awareness and shake the conscience of the world that they must act now on to call India to account, not only on account of disinformation, but also on account of the involvement in terrorism and terror financing, and most importantly, for the human rights violations. And it is not
Ambassador,
justified to just say that the world is not aware, world is not doing. I think I have been participating in loads of webinars, and where I have been sharing panels with the foreign parliamentarians, and they have been very vocal about it.
That's
so
right.
I believe
Ambassador
that
Zakia, sorry to cut you. Of course, there is this realization, and we are sure that Pakistan Foreign Office has been working on it. Gentlemen like you, Ambassador Aslam Rizvi, they have been working on the diplomatic front to counter India. The most important thing is that India is exposed internationally, and this should not be the end. Pakistan and the international community should expose India on every platform, using every platform to tell the world what is happening in Indian occupied Kashmir and the way the Muslims are living in India. I would thank all our special guests in the studio. Mr. Ahsan Sheikh, thank you for joining us. Pleasure having you on the program. Ambassador Rizvi, thank you for joining us. And Ambassador Zakia, thank you for your time. Pleasure having you on the program. That is all from today's dialogue. See you next time. Khuda Hafiz.